Good morning. 다시 들리기 쉬고요. 상말라.
So I see you all. I don't know if everyone has arrived, but to every and each of you, I want to express my greetings and welcome, warmest welcome.
되는 한서 마투니로 숨쉬 저기도 왔다. 한서 마투니로 숨쉬 저기도 대행 저랑서 상마 동바 빼하고 동거도 선바배 가부 중스.
So it's been several years we haven't met in person. I think now nearly 3 years, but I'm so happy to see you today, even though it's through Zoom.
되는 상마 로충로 저도 승인 제로 저도 라게.
I can see you all getting younger and not more beautiful as years pass.
되는 나이나 양 로숨나라 플로레라 빼야고중 나마 practice 망보지야라 송 계제시야 망보라서 배선바 기부예스.
So as it goes, just to start, as we wait for people to arrive on time, I want to share some news from my side. I'm fine. I'm really very well in Plure, mostly staying in Plure and enjoying being here, and everything is going very well for me here.
되네 마란서 저라만 자왕 루파양 고함 상보제네 네팔라 슈도 되네 네슬 망보도 되네 디링 좀 루파 요게게 좀 요바데 킹게레 되네 마란서 저라마기 베네딕션 낭요아레스 낭와
And also,
낭와세요.
Also, I want to say, give some news from His Holiness. So His Holiness is in Amitabha in Nepal these days, and His Holiness is also going and doing well. And I informed him that we are having this session on Amitabha, the Tantra of Amitabha, with Drubpon UK today. And so he has the information, and he gave his permission for this transmission of knowledge and experience.
되네 믹세이데 루파 유케게 tradition이라 되네베 가보종 드린 상마 투취해야 돼. 되네 먼저 주소할 때네래 대행상 주소래가 지금 상마라 다시 들릭스.
And so His Holiness gave his blessing. And I would like to especially greet the organizers of Drubpon UK who organized this Zoom session. So thank you for, I know it's a lot of work, and I really want to express my gratitude for this work.
나서 되네다 드링 먼저기 계제셔야 돼. 되네 도는 뭐 제시레기 아미타바기 냠렌데르바 냠렌데.
So today, the topic of our retreat or guided teachings or guided practice is this practice that Drubpon holds in his hands. So it's the practice of Amitabha, and it's a treasure from the Drubpon, the great accomplished one, Sakya-sri.
되네디 배차 인지케라 줄네 상말에 여러봐 선드링 다야나 쿠라 주와도.
So I hope you all have the text. Diana Cook ensured that it's ready for this retreat. Do you all have it?
선드링 줄러봐.
Translated by Sandrine.
요래 상말에
Do you have it? You can nod if you have it, or if you don't, well, you know, you need to get in touch with the organizers and to get it. Okay, everybody has it. Great. Thank you.
다 동마 나랑서 상마 Nangba Sanje Chumdendiki Jejugriba, Nangba Sanje Zingdriba, Jenjugriba, Sanje Chumdendiki Sungjugi Lamlan Dominriba, Matsupa Jenariba, Tangma Matsudiriba, Tienzang Tangbo Tongma di Nangba Sanje di Kandasi Jugri Sena, Kunju Sumla, Chapsudone, Tene Kunju Sumki Labjala Labne, Lamla Dominji, Nangba Sanje Slapura. Tienzang Tangbo, Anna Kunju Sumsing in the Kandiji Sene, Shegu, they catch him to Tangbo Nangchung Trinabi.
Yes. Niden su kale kale lebgidu tsamar kale kale lebgidu kanzu kon sur yugela tusuchi ki par yore kon sustis majore sa shugiya yud bina. So as we introduced this topic and this practice of Amitabha, this treasure, spiritual treasure, this is a Buddhist practice. So if we want to practice it, and we all want to practice it, I have to understand that we do that as what we call Buddhist, what we so-called Buddhist. And what that means, being a Buddhist means just, first off, we have an entry point to our practice, which is the refuge. So let's talk about that first.
Tene Dangbo Sangje Sadi Kandijire Chi Habhobodo. Tene Chuluk Shendan Dagiyomare. Chuluk Shenla Sangje Sadi Tendechi Jungdewa. Tende Maimba, Manzo Nangba Sangje Lula. Sangje Yang Dangbo Manzo Chikpa Chikchang. Tene Korwala Chikpa Chikchang. Tene Sangje Gi Kunjusumna Chapsun Rone, Tegwa Chamu Semchene. Tene kalba mangbola sonam da ishi ki tsot sane nyemongba tamje pangne tene dribdar tene chense endin kundin chik chungbar bas tende chikta sanje se tangbo ngarang su chikbare tene lega jene lamla shune nyema chik nyemongba tamje sangtsar endin tamje je sarang chila sanje sekon tedabo sanje di nganzu tobe debago nganzu nyemachik sangjego gudu samgo dirida nganzu dangbote.
Being Buddhist, being a follower of the Buddha, Buddha, which means the enlightened one, or rather the enlightened state. And literally in Tibetan, it's not about enlightenment, it's about purity and development. So who was, when we talk about the Buddha, usually we think of a person called the Buddha. And the key thing for us to understand as follower of that person who reached that state is that he was an ordinary man to start with. At the beginning of his path, of his spiritual path, he was like us. And what happened is that he practiced. And through his practice, which took many lives, which took eons of spiritual development, he developed certain qualities and he purified all sorts of negative energies and obscurations. And eventually, he got completely rid of all kinds and gross and subtle obscurations and veils, and also he developed limitless qualities. And these two aspects of purity and maturity or development are what we call the enlightened state or Buddhahood, and he reached that state. And he was a man, an ordinary human being like us. And the key point for us Buddhists, when we are not relying on an external God, our guide is, and this is really specific to Buddhism, is that we take as a guide and a source, main source of inspiration, someone who realized and who developed certain qualities that we can also develop. that and realization we can also obtain or reach. That's the really entry point in Buddhism.
Tene da nganzo samlo tangde sangje ge yang tene lamla shunu nyumong batam ji rimji pangne nyuma ji sangje dowa nganzo yang gaje ne sangje ge mares sangje ge judo nganzo la dowas tene nganzo la yenjang tene ngayang sangje go do charanda re go do samdangbo sangje kunjola chapsun do patire do tene da ana chapsun do sane garje gore sidi sangje labjala labgo gya ti labde tene sangje labje dila chu kunjo se do tene da tene sangje go na garje gore sidi chu ge lamla do gore da tene diwar da ana chu se de kandeji re sana pechana la lungtok niji dewe chokonjo, lungi cho no tokwe che sungda. Tene lungi cho nangla, tene shepa tsigre no, yigire no, lungi cho nangla, dene sums, ndulwa ge parchik, dene ge parchik, tene ngomba ge parchik, ndulwa dode ngomba chene, tene tsigre no, joja tsigre no, ta joja digi dendila, laba sums, laba tsutumji laba, tinginji laba, sherabi laba, dere da, lapsumre da, dorduna sanjigi chudi kandere sidi, tene laba sumgi, tensha chudere da, dorduna. Tene dila laba tsutumgi laba kharir sungyor sena, yang tsutumla sumdo. Tene dangbu tsutumla, tene nyechudumbi tsutum, chik. Tene dikpa tamze pangwaya, mangbo sungyorwa. Tene domba shune pangwaya, domba mashune pangwaya. Tene ta tsutum pena, tene sosor tarbana na sosor ridun la pyarwa. Genyen pa, genyen ma, gitsul pa, gitsul ma, gelop ma, gelong pa, gelong ma jedi. Te tabo domba sutra nala, domba dünüyor, sosyal ritüns, tende kangrung şune sunguyor. Tila nyeje be çürümüz. Da niba geva çüdü güçürüm sedi caçım burası sunguyor. Geva çüdü güçürüm nala sonam geçoda jige çok so sonam geçodi geva çüdü güçürüm nala. Geva çüdü güçürüm nala tene parıtı çimba tuksedir. Çimba taya Tsutum sungya, seba kobya, tsundru, tene, samten, sherab, tene, gewa chidu, tsutum. Da diri da, tangbo dikpa pangbo gore da, sungdo. Nipa di gewa chugo gore da, sungdo. Tene, sumba, semjin denju, tsutum sungdi, digi tsam digi marda, semjin la roba che gore, sedi, semjin denju, tsutum la, shido, duwe ngobo shisi. Nyembar mawa, kowa jimba, dön timba, dön jeba, sedi, da diwa chimba dere. Semjen la rokwa kandis chegore sedi, towa ridu semjen da, animal chiku marwa, midang sangma, dinan nganso sangha nangla, family nangla, nyembar mawa, kechaya shego do. Tene, kowa jimba, kunzo rokwa khazi, chetudu chego do. Dön timba, nganso ki leha jibe, sapsa, jende chego do. Dene keje shene dön nom timba, sangje chö nom timba shego no. Dön cheba rangi ya nyamlen, tene kande sangje kande su dina shi nyamlen chaya dila dön ngo bo shis. Da dere da laba sum nangla, tene desi sangma dügyor da, laba tsirunji laba, tingin zingi laba sedi, tene sonam ge sok sangma dinangla, laba sherab ki laba la, tene tongmani gomne, mitakba da tongmani gomya de so che di da, laba sum sedi shego de sangma ki, sangje lam kanis dogo re sedi, laba sum la to sam gom sum je ne dogo re, sedi shekon jo re.
Yes, Alors, bienvenue à ceux qui, welcome to those who just arrived. We are talking about really the entry point of any practice, and the practice which is we are going to explain and introduce and provide instructions for today. And of course, the entry point is that we can be enlightened, we can reach Buddhahood, which means reach a state of utter purity and utter spiritual development. And this is what Buddhahood means. This is what the Buddha Shakyamuni accomplished. And the entry point, which we call the refuge, is the determination, the will to become enlightened, to reach Buddhahood, to be like the Buddha. And in order, so we call that taking refuge in the Buddha. It means taking refuge in enlightenment, going for enlightenment. Enlightenment means purity and development. And as we go for refuge, we take refuge, means it's a movement towards this state. So it's an inner state. And so there is a path. And this path is called the Dharma. So that's our second entry point. It's a triple entry point, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the three jewels, which we take refuge in. And now we're talking about the path towards enlightenment. And this path towards enlightenment is called the Dharma. And generally speaking, when we talk about Dharma, we refer to two different things. One is what is transmitted, the transmission. So it's related to teachings and texts. So it's about words and concepts and ideas. And this has to be received. And this is given. It's called the Dharma. This is just one aspect. But the key aspect is the realization of these concepts and notions and teachings. And so these are the two. When we talk about the Dharma as a path, there are the teachings and there is the realization of the teachings, and both are called the Dharma. And for us to progress, we have to get the teachings and we have to realize these teachings. In order to realize these teachings, we must understand what they are. And there are three great categories which refer to Buddhism overall. So it's not specific to what we're talking today. One is called the Vinaya. Vinaya is a Sanskrit term. It refers to taming our own mind. And more specifically, in the Buddhist terminology, it refers to a corpus of texts and teachings associated with disciplines and vows, and all the details about that. So this is the first teaching we need to get, and that we need to practice and realize is this taming. The second is called the sutra. So maybe these three, you know them as the three, Tripitaka, the three sets of teachings and categories of teachings, or three like nets, or three package. So the first is the Vinaya. It's about discipline, or rather taming. Second is the Sutra. And third is called, in Sanskrit, all these are Sanskrit terms, Sutra and Abhidharma. Abhidharma is the working of the world. It's sort of science, Buddhist science, cosmology and psychology and so on. Whereas Sutra is about practice. It's not just taming, but practice, training. And associated to these three sets of teachings, the Vinaya, the Sutra, and the Abhidharma, we have to train accordingly. So Vinaya is about discipline and taming, and this is about abandoning negativity and refraining from certain attitudes and certain activities. So usually what comes along with that, as I just said, is about the discipline and the vows. So when we talk about this first training and set of teachings, it means we have to commit formally with vows. And there are different levels of vows. We say there are 7 vows just for self-liberation, to liberate oneself through discipline, not doing just whatever we want and being wild, but taming ourselves through this discipline. The 7 vows are very simple because they separate male and female, because the protocol has a text for male and female. Especially we'll say she or he when the protocol is read. So there is the lay people, lay practitioner, she and female lay practitioners, and male practitioners. And I greet the dog who's happy to hear about discipline. What all these vows, so the lay, male, female, and then there are the first level of ordination, which is called Getsul. So Getsul Ma for female, Getsul for male. And then there are movement towards upper ordination, the full-fledged ordination, male and female, and there's one intermediate level of ordination for women. So whatever level of vows we take, which is also something progressive, we have to commit not to behave wildly, and there are certain recommendations and very formalized sets of vows to take, to engage and commit to taming our own external attitude. And basically it means, it's called the discipline of not harming. So this is the first training. When we talk about the first set of teachings, the Vinaya, it comes with the first training, which is the ethics or moral discipline, if you will, which is about not harming, not indulging in so-called negative deeds or destructive activities. That's the first part of our really entry into our practice, spiritual practice as Buddhists. The second set of teachings is called the Sutra, and it's about developing qualities. So the training is in practicing positive, after refraining from the negative. Sutra training in the sutra, or in the second type of discipline, is the discipline of performing positive, helpful, benevolent activities that are positive, constructive activities. And for us, generally speaking, this refers to what we call the 6 parameters in Sanskrit, and the 6 virtuous practices that lead us to the other shore, to enlightenment. So that's generosity and ethics and tolerance, patience, and perseverance, also called diligence or enthusiasm or joyous effort, and concentration, also called meditation, and wisdom. So all these kind of activities, and this is the formal set called the 6 parameters, is our second training, referring to the second set of teachings when we talk about the Dharma, taking refuge in the Dharma. And the third one in the Dharma, we said, is Abhidharma. So Abhidharma refers to the working of our mind, is sort of science, Buddhist science, and the working of the universe. And the training is to gain wisdom through meditation and meditative absorption. And there is a third kind of discipline that comes with that. So the first discipline was not harming, no negative activity. Second was accomplished positive activities, body, speech, and mind. Always when we say activities, it includes the mind. And now it's about benefiting others. It's about how we behave in life in a way that can lead others to enlightenment, even at the level where we are, which means when we talk, there are 3 ways, and we have to practice all of them, 4 ways. First is the way we talk. So our talk should be pleasant, never hurting or shocking or hurting. Our attitude should be helpful and benevolent and kind. And the third one is that we have to behave in accordance with what we preach. And the fourth one is that overall our behavior has to be meaningful. Our activities have to be meaningful and be inspiring. And so it means we have to be careful. We cannot just do what we want, but really consider that what we do is meant to benefit others through inspiration. That's what we're talking here. We're not talking about a master's activities for benefiting all beings, but just for our own discipline. So these are the 3 disciplines: refraining from negativity, training in virtuous deeds, and behaving oneself in a way that is beneficial for others through the inspiration.
대답고 산제게 송샤죠 추디 람란도나 테네 딜라 추군줄라 잡순도 하세고요. 다 추군줄라 잡순도네 람 라바숨게 냠는라 퇴송곰숨 제라 수수 직북이 제투고요 말이야. 테네 언절라 라마고 개겐고요. 테네 딜라 테네 겐든 건줄라고요. 겐든 건줄스타 겐든 건줄라 리돌 니든지 디베게 겐든 건줄 릭돌스 릭시아디 테네 산제기 숭샤주 덴바시나네 덴바 숨바 람기 덴바나 종엔 테네 람기 덴바나 돈에 고바 통연직 라 겐든 건줄 라고버라 팅아란 속에요 라마 자벨라마디 간데지고 그래서나 라바 숨기 냠는 타르칭인지 고고요 마소소 개겐데 되게는 건조도 개겐들도 소소 개겐 랍자낭엔 사포르칭이 로과징인데 개겐 건조 되게다 건조 숨세지 가고도 되네 낭바데서 건조 숨라 잡수 조고에 된다 가르세나 코로데 동아지랑 시래도 코로를 타르고도 코로를 타레라 테네 건주 숨나 잡수 전에 람람 말람나 코랄레 타레 멘도 삼네 건주 숨나 로케 잡수 로디 테네 잡줄 랍자 슬랍세가 잡줄 랍자데 가르세디 틱파 빵고고야 게와 두고야 어데 데라레 텐데 질라데네 건주 숨지 못해스 데르
So this is about the Dharma. When we embark on the path, or when we commit towards enlightenment, this entry is the taking refuge, and we take refuge in the 3 jewels. So this was about the Dharma, what we mean when we say, I take refuge in the Dharma, and what we are meant to do. Taking refuge in the Dharma means committing and training along these 3 ways, 3 disciplines, and 3 trainings, 3 paths, 3 aspects of the path. And so in short, taking refuge in the Dhamma means training, developing through training, and there are 3 types of trainings. And then when you take refuge, it's a 3 jewels. So Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. What does the Sangha mean? Usually it means that we are on a path. Now we are treading a path, the Dhamma path, but on our own, it's very difficult. It's almost impossible because we are lacking the inspiration, we are lacking guidance, and we are lacking also perhaps corrections or instructions. So we need Sangha, and Sangha means the people, usually it's the masters, or he or she, who can help and support, provide instruction, check how we're doing, and answer our questions. And so that's the guru, that's the enlightened master, and that can be also qualified teachers who can also be of help. But usually when we refer to the Sangha, it means the guru who has or the person who has 2 main qualities that qualifies Sangha. One is the knowledge, and the second is the realization. The liberation. So knowledge, awareness, which is a state of awareness. Excuse me. So awareness and liberation. So what does it mean? This knowledge, which is a state of wisdom and realization, means that this person has to have tread this path and practice and accomplish all these trainings we have mentioned, completely abandoning all negative activities of body, speech, and mind, and fulfilled all the development and all the disciplines, and have all the realizations of the teaching. So that means that's what we call a guru, the root guru, who must have perfected or completed the 3 trainings we were talking about before. And liberation means that this person needs to be liberated. So Sangha refers to the guru, the enlightened one, or the teachers who can provide instructions and guidance. And so with these 3, when we have these 3, we have the Buddha, we have the target and the inspiration of enlightened state, and the knowledge of the enlightened state. And we have the path, we have the Dharma and all this training, and we train, and we have the support from the Sangha, from guides, enlightened guides who have the realization and the liberation. Then we can get out of samsara. And why do we want to get out of samsara to start with? Is because we understand that samsara means it's a sort of vicious circle, or it's a cycle of endless suffering that has no actual essence. It leads nowhere but going back to square one, round and round, into suffering, and that it's pointless to remain there. It's just suffering. So I want to get out of here. I want to be free from this prison, and therefore I take refuge. So with this motivation of being liberated from this circle going round and round, which is a translation of samsara. Samsara is a Sanskrit word. It means going around and round. It's a circle. So getting free from being spinning around is the motivation to go for refuge and perform all the training we have just mentioned.
Then da Japsun Roa Samji Tigirbe Sena Digi and Tigimindawa. Dadi Hagoda Japsun Roa Samji Yansung Sum Sing in the Lamakini Turi Midang Halakene Dewa Pizun Sabat Togiores. In a young Sanje Ngawang Tawela, Tene that's Taringo, Lela, Jobs draw some eating with the Sanje Ngawang Tawela. Tene Nganzo Peggy Namba de Tequachimurama, Jabdu Vichela, Tequachimugi, Simje, Sadi, Tequachimu Simjes, Carla Residi, Doridu Simje Tamje, Pamaimba, Moshi, Katin Chimboimba, Habo, Tene Katin Lone Table, Katin Lone Teala, Tene Juda with the Kare Seda, Simje Tamjela, Jambada Niji Cometera. Take it in a dig Kulun Diana, Tene de la Tequachimbo, Sega. Till of data, Tequachimbo diso, Chu Nyamlen Kar, Chena and Sonum Gitsokar, Sanayang, Roundiglo Maimba, Pama Simjan Tamjigitandala in Samne, Legajadida, Tequachimbo, Sega.
Now, so with this taking refuge, which is really the key that makes our path a Buddhist path, is that enough by practicing what we have mentioned and entering that gate into that path, leading to that path and treading that path? Is that enough? That is not enough for us, because we are not practicing, we are interested into full enlightenment, into Buddhahood, and a Buddhahood that is sort of universal enlightenment that covers all sentient beings, all phenomena. And for that, we need to upgrade our motivation and include all sentient beings. And that is what we call the Mahayana, the great vehicle. And as we take refuge on a mood or with a motivation that is not just, I want to be free from this prison of the circle, the samsara. I want all sentient beings to be free from suffering and from this pointless going round and into suffering, round and round, through suffering after suffering, death after death. So the way to upgrade is to develop limitless or a growing, starting from where we are, up to limitless loving kindness and compassion. And this is the engine that will make our practice practice that leads to full enlightenment, universal enlightenment that benefits all beings. And the way to develop, because this compassion and this loving kindness has to grow and to be reinforced and strengthened and expanded. One method is called repaying kindness to the parrots. And this method has several steps. The first step is to consider all sentient beings or any other being as our mother from a previous life, considering that any sentient being has been our mother, not only one time, but many times in our countless past lives. And contemplating what the kindness of a mother towards her child, bearing the child, taking care of the child, educating the child, and sacrificing her comfort, health during the before the birth, and then the pain of the birth, and all this suffering she's going through for the baby, and developing immense and intense gratitude towards the mother, our mother, and the mother principle, and then contemplating how sentient beings are suffering. They are stuck in samsara, going around and around, and of course the majority of sentient beings are in the lower realms, so really going through tremendous suffering. But even in the upper realms, they cannot avoid decay and death and going down, falling back into lower realms. So feeling really extreme compassion, which means feeling the pain, empathy, if you will, and developing the very, very a strong urge to liberate our mothers from this state of suffering, and in this way developing the great loving kindness and compassion that wants to liberate all sentient beings from the samsara with compassion. What we call compassion is wanting all beings to be free from suffering. So with this as a motive, as an engine, we take refuge. We take refuge for all sentient beings to be completely free from suffering and enlightened. And this is upgraded refuge taking in the great vehicle called Mahayana. It's the higher level of Buddhist teachings and practice.
다 정말 개통마 대다고 kunjusum이 셈나가 된고로 봤어. 실세도 셈르다 셈나가 된나 딜라 예나메나 같이 봐요. 말 셈나네 된고래. 되는 kunjusum 된 되네 디토네 도르도 셈제 담제 되는 인지라고 게. 되네 잡도기 상제 쇼동 소지 쇼동라 서슴 된고도
So we are going to use the booklet, if you have it, called Guru Yoga. And we are going to do this practice with a formal recitation. That means we are going to think of the three jewels, Buddha, the enlightened state, our path, the Dharma, the teachings, and our commitment and our practice on the path, and then the support, the Sangha, and develop the motivation, and we recite together this refuge. So we have a text. I'm going to pick it. So it's the small Guru Yoga. Just a second.
되는 정말 라고 테모자로도 zanjejedan soje jonamala chanjo barado dane jasoje agejezo jebesanamje Dala benjere sanje ayendo marajo sanje dana soje ayjana la chanjo bardo dane jazoje dage ayjezo jebe sananje Dala benjere Sanje Dumaja Jimbagi Injike Tola Sasi Tana.
Injike. That's it. So we read it in our own language. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I take refuge until I am enlightened. By the merit of my generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings.
So, Teneda Dring Manzogi Kejeshade Dewa Chingi. Tene derita dewa chinji kia la chu manzuke tene nyamlin che derava. Tene da dewa chingi shinkam labdi tene chirdang sanje ki shinkam mango yarwa. Jawa ringa ki shinkam, jawa ringa nane tene sharlo nupchene sanje ringa ki shinkam yarwa. Tene chokdi nupki chokla 링하는 릭직 성제 요밤에게 신감이어래 오 신감 셴레 성제 요밤에게 신감라 깨알라 레라보 레라보 가레시티 Dictip Changma Pang Machanaya, Nyamongpa Changma Pang Machanayang, Rakwatamji Pangne, Tawa Pang Machanayang, Devachan Ketuver, Jendi Lelavar. Sanji Shen Lakela, Nyamong Bitiba Shijitiba, Tanji Pangsan Matiketuver Maro, Devachala Lela Wachan Ketuver. Tene Teta Lela Ketuver Harisiti, Sanje Vame Korangi, Tukche Melamra. Korangi kulung malam tango ne semchi tara tene semchen tene robanai ti insang dewa chen le kya la le la yo pechana la dewa chen ji shingam na sangje weba megen shu malam tabe chungsa yin shingchu de ro jiao shu sedi ju de malam ya bo ji tamna tene ki ge war ta malam gi top gi ke tu ge war dir.
So now with this NG or this introduction, we can approach the specific practice, which is the topic of this weekend, which is a practice dedicated to reaching a pure realm, which is called Dewachen in Tibetan, which means the realm of great bliss, or the blissful realm, rather. It's not specifically great, but it's blissful. And this is, we call it a pure land, the pure land of the Buddha Amitabha. Amitabha means infinite light. So it's the blissful realm of infinite light. And it's a practice that allows us, that enables us to reach this pure realm. Usually, as we would see, we are talking about for the next life. When we talk about being in a pure field or pure realm, it's an objective or a target, a name after death, where what will happen? Well, I want to be reborn in the pure realm, in the Buddha field. So that means be out of samsara. And they are different. There are many different pure realms, pure fields, where we can be reborn. It depends on the different aspects of enlightenment, what we call the 5 Buddhist families. There are many different Buddhas, many faces to enlightenment, but usually it's systematized into a system of 5 families or 5 classes of enlightenment, which are associated with 5 Buddhas, 5 enlightened ones, fully enlightened ones, which are not historical figures. They are aspects of enlightenment, and they are associated with different aspects of what, as human beings, we can understand and conceive in terms of existence. And one of the things we can conceive is directions and orientation. So they are the 4 cardinal directions, and the center. It makes like a mandala you have heard of. And today we are talking about this blissful realm of infinite light, and this one is in the western direction in the mandala. So this is what we are going to talk about, how to get there when we die, how to be reborn in this western direction field, which is called the blissful field. And compared to the others, like if there are 5 pure fields, we could take as a target for our after we pass away, so that we are out of samsara and definitively out. This one, Dewachen, the blissful realm, is by far the easiest one to reach, because the conditions to be reborn in Dewachen are much easier, much more accessible to a practitioner than the other pure realms. Why? Because in order to be reborn in Dewachen, one doesn't need to be pure, very advanced practitioner with a lot of purification already accomplished, and no more negative tendency, no more negative karma. We can still have our burden, past inherited from our past, a burden of negative activities of body, speech, and mind, and all the veils and obscurations that come along with that. And we may even still have afflictive emotions, which means a very disturbed mental state, just the ordinary state of an ordinary being. That's called very disturbed. It's called afflicted mind. So we can be reborn in Dewachen, even though we still have an afflicted mind and have not purified our past accumulations, negative accumulations of bad activities, negative activities, and all the obscurations that come along with that. Why is it so that there is a possibility to be reborn in a pure land where there is the Buddha, infinite light, Amitabha, there, while we are not up to that level of high spiritual realization to be in the presence of enlightenment? Well, that's just because of Amitabha himself. The Buddha Amitabha is actually a Buddha who, at the start of his path, that's what one of the explanations, when he was not enlightened, he made it his aim as a Buddha to be a Buddha who is accessible to everyone who wishes to access his state, his realm. So and then he became a Buddha. So he has this blessing of a Buddha who makes himself and his realm accessible. And because of that, it's accessible because of the Buddha Amitabha and the power of his own aspiration and realization of his aspiration, fulfillment of his aspiration. And what that means is that for us, the key to be reborn in Dewachen is that we have to wish it. We have to have this aspiration, and that's the main condition that will allow us to be reborn in Dewachen. It's not how far we are in terms of purification, but how determined and focused on that wish we are.
Tene dedabo Dewachen gi shingam de kawa yore sena nganso chok tene nuki chok na yo so. Tela tene nuki chok la sanje yoba me shingam yore so de sanje yoba me tene kudo marbo pe me seke tene gelong gi cha chene lungse na me shugo yore ba tene esu shepchin rabu pa wa chene si öndu tene chanan dorji tene janju se ba mango ta khone tene Obamegi takola tene gelongi kendin chembo se de tajuma tende cha tong chi pum jewa saya tongju korang korne tene gelong de se chungi digi chun namza gi chungi de namga pura tene marbonda buchi liwang do tende tene den nuki chona sure tene shingam de la kena tene khari yore sedi je go mare na go mare ge go mare shi go mare tene bemel hindu kangba go mare mata go mare sama bemel hindu kar sambade yongore tene da shingam stere ba kar samna yang namsam sambasam yongore ba shingam stere ba tene takbar shi Amitabha kundeni kachishu tene nyamlenje yore tene kia de mendope mana ne kia yore siga tene zuchugi namla phunne dewa jingi shingam shen shila rone kachi shuya sanje shen zane kachi shuya ki dine ba yore teta u dewa chen shingam tere do dewa chen bos tene chida yore samgorda semgi yishi bormata yimachena tesum chena de yang mare den chacha chatamba yore de nga thongma songsana nga zumi gi de gan thong de ne kilometer sumshi che thong mare wa Di maraba. Tene orang rangi sim gi mig digi tene zambuling sama tonggido. Pedi nangsing te samu tang. Tene dewa jingi singa ngun sumto shudu samgo dila ke gogodu sumalam jab. Malam jamna ke geyor dila ke gogodu. Kandis ke gere se rab jamna setila. Majuna bardola tene ke geyor sigar. Bardola tene shiva rangi shiva yi bahago. Tene lamsang dewa chengi malam suten. Tene dewa chengi malam suten. Malam jamna, ten bardola, mangbo dewa chengi kegi wardan. Dewa chengi malam hagung di soos. Tienza pe za chembore do da dewa chengi kiyad. Kechim.
In order to be able to accomplish and this practice of being reborn, training to be reborn in Dewachen, so there is a practice. There are several practices, and that's the topic for this weekend. But of course, first up, we have to be confident that this is possible and that there is such a realm, such a place, and we can consider it a physical place, because anyway, our mind works that way, that when we talk about states of realms, we imagine a place. So this place exists. It's somewhere, and it's in the western direction. So our mind, we should orientate our mind towards the western direction and imagine or consider. And the thing is not just imagination, but we cannot see it with our eyes. And because we cannot see it, so therefore we have to use our imagination. But we may think, okay, just imagine, because it doesn't exist. It's just a creation of my mind, and therefore I don't believe in it. But it's not like that. First of all, we cannot see it because our eye capacity, eye faculty is very limited. Overall, our eyes don't allow us to see very far. That's the first limitation. We are completely aware, we can agree with that if something is distant on a flat ground, 2, 3, 4 kilometers, and then 5, and then we cannot see further than that. So Dewachen is not very close physically as a place. So we cannot see it anyway with our eyes, even though we had still an ability of seeing pure realms, the realms where the Buddha stand. And here Buddha Amitabha. We cannot. So therefore we rely on our imagination, but we have at the same time to be really convinced and to trust that there is a place called Dewachen. It's the blissful pure land of the Buddha of infinite light, as it says at the end of the prayer of Dewachen, the short one that we recite daily for most of us, sometimes many times daily. It says, I use the version which is at the end of the Guru Yoga, which Drubpon just mentioned a while ago. In the pure land of Dewachen resides the protector, the Buddha infinite light. It is the birthplace of those who express this aspiration, the aspiration to be reborn in Dewachen. May we be born in that sublime paradise. So we need to think of this place and focus on this place. So there is the orientation towards the west, and then we can think how it is. First of all, there is Amitabha residing there. So it's infinite light, a reddish color, very majestic, and enlightened Buddha, infinite light. The name says it all. And also he's teaching, because his entourage, in his entourage, there are also people like us who may require teachings, or people more advanced who still require teaching. So he's there, and there is the continual spiritual atmosphere of Dharma and spiritual development. And he's surrounded by an entourage of very advanced practitioners, bodhisattvas, and monks and nuns. And these monastics, talking about monastics refers to a certain type of conduct and focus in the mind. And so therefore we visualize these monastic monks. Traditionally we say monks. Anyway, it's not relevant, male or female is not relevant anymore. And we can, the text, the commentaries say, visualize that they are all wearing the saffron robe. So saffron is more or less like orange or yellow, yellowish, orange or orangish yellow. And we can see this crowd of very peaceful crowd of people wearing these bright yellow orange robes, and you can imagine that, and there are hundreds of them, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, billions of them, an immense attendance or audience of gentle, tamed bodhisattvas and advanced practitioners who keep their vows, monastic vows, and disciplined people. And it's also a place where everything is accomplished effortlessly. So we will not have to exert in any way to fulfill our needs. And not only our needs, but also our wishes. Whatever we wish for in the Dewachen is accomplished. We want food, we want music, we want flowers, we want whatever we want is fulfilled effortlessly. It's like, we could say, magic. And also we have the capacity to move around, and also to move when we are in the Dewachen, in the blissful realm of the infinite light. We have reached the capacity from there to go to the other Buddha's realm, the one that are not easily accessible now that we are human beings, ordinary human beings. We cannot access because they require too advanced capacities. But once we are in Dewachen, we cannot sort of fly, take off, and go in any of the pure realms of these 4 other Buddhas, and receive their teachings. So we can get the teachings of Buddha Amitabha, and then we can get the teachings of all other Buddhas, and then just come back home in the Dewachen, in the pure land of infinite light. And so we have to think of this place and aspire, like really be like fond of it and obsessed with it, and really want to be there. And with that, with this power of the strong wish, focused aspiration, then it's not difficult to be reborn in Dewachen. When we die, we end this experience we have now of existence, of some, which is samsara. And when we die, there is a state which is called the bardo, which is not no more in this life, but it's not more taking rebirth anywhere in samsara, but with the strength, mental, spiritual strength of cultivating this aspiration and this target, Dewachen, I'm going to Dewachen, I want to go to Dewachen. Even when we are dead, we are in the bardo, this will be imprinted, the imprint will be there, and we can aspire and say, now is the time. And then very easily, without having to take rebirth anywhere else, we take rebirth in Dewachen. We find ourselves taking rebirth in Dewachen. So the way to, probably a metaphor, to be reborn in Dewachen is a huge lotus that we are in a bed, and all of a sudden it opens, and there we are, and in this pure field of bliss.
Wanda, that's on my house on Dewachen Shingamdi, Nukucholayores, Tila Sanje Bamishuyares. Then Anzo Kande, Chigamalam Tabna, Tila Kigres. Da kia de kandes kia gresena manzo chedila so budi yune semdi dodi di semdi ki bar lemni ki korwa ten bardo la dirwa ti hago baje ta lela bore seadi malam tamna ke yorba malam taptma ke yor ta ina yang malam di tuyela juji go yore se ju mena debu yonga yomarta buddhist kitana melam yakpo yongela juji ko yores tene melam duela judi shi sunel dewa chenla kiala jushi jushi di ju tangbo di tanda laba nangsing dewa chengi shingam samayabo tanda ichi kia chikche niba di tene ngansoge tene sunnam ki tsok tang ishi ki tsok kati yene sak tene dewa chenla kia 게 주티르스 저 손놈 사고 그래요. 손놈 소도 있어. 주니버지 somebody 대화쟁이 시간을 계약이 되네. 물론 다 배천나가 닌 렌숨 첸 렌숨 세용도 물론 잡아야 돼. 딜랍디 첸나가라 물론 잡세 계자 말해도 쇼게 칼라마서 버두 렌숨 칼라사선의 렌숨 테네 제만도야 기도달라 테네 멜럼디양도 잡 숨바 시바디 조 장주기 셈기 지생고 인치미지 대화심보 장주기 셈 셈절라 디시디 멜럼도야기 멜럼도야기 중음만 되래 디시디 냠는 제바이나 tene dewa chela ketu tene tanda dewa chenga melam de sangma yoro dinang la de jushi de sang yoro wa tinyam le jete ta dewa chela ke lela bo re te melam de tuyala jushi de sang bo re te ha go
So I think the key points are key, the introduction to what we are talking about. There's a pure realm which we can take birth in, be reborn in, a blissful realm which is outside of samsara, which is in an enlightened realm, even though we are not enlightened, and we can get there after we die in this life, just right after we die in the bardo. If we have the focused aspiration, we get there immediately. There's no, it's end of samsara for us. And not only that, but the only condition is to have this special aspiration. This is what will make it. But now, what makes this aspiration an effective and efficient aspiration? Because, okay, it's all about aspiring to be reborn in Dewachen, but we can have all sorts of aspirations, and this is not just any aspiration, it's a very, very powerful spiritual aspiration. Therefore, for this aspiration to be an efficient aspiration, a wish that can be fulfilled, there are forces that comes along with it. It's like inherently with this aspiration, there is the matter, the material it's made of. And the material it's made of, which we may call cause, the cause of this aspiration, are four. So the first one is that we have to be confident. We have to have the trust. There is the Wachen, there is this pure land, this pure field where I can be reborn, and I want to be reborn. I mean, now it's not about I want, as conviction and trust that it exists and it's easy to get there and I can get there. And of course, the second one is this aspiration. We need to cultivate the wish to be reborn there. So we use tools and techniques which are practices, formal practices, as like walking sticks, to ensure we have this aspiration. And it is said that this aspiration has to be made 3 times every day, 3 times every night, which doesn't mean that we have to wake up in the middle of the night and to do the formal activation of our aspiration and the strengthening of our aspiration. It means that 6 times a day, like before we get up or after we the dinner or something like that. So 3 times and 3 times, that's 6 times. And actually this number just means that we have to keep it in mind. We have to have a mind that is focused with this aspiration. So first is the trust. Second is strong and cultivated aspiration through formal aspirations, formal, what we call aspiration prayers or practices. And the text we have, don't know if you have a paper version. Drubpon has a paper version because Drubpon is in plural, where the text was where we prepare text. Otherwise, you have the digital. I have only the digital, but this text is also a practice that we need to practice again and again and again to have the actual mindset on this target. And then the third cause or the material that makes the aspiration an efficient aspiration is the accumulation of energy, spiritual energy, which is the merit and the wisdom. We have to have some merit and wisdom and to ensure that there is this energy, positive energy. So mainly positive energy, which is the merit, positive virtues, activities in store. And the fourth one that makes it efficient aspiration is bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. It means we have to have this wish of this mindset on enlightenment for all sentient beings, on full enlightenment for all sentient beings. That's the Mahayana. So we have to have a Mahayana mind also. So these are the 4 causes that makes aspiration to be reborn in Drubpon a powerful, empowered, and efficient aspiration.
Da Drubpon la kia lela ore inayang juni chango do tenders tiraba. Tene jushi di samlo tangne manzuge mitse nangla kaze je tutu je bogo yare. Tene da diring dinangla jushi chasang changye sang te dabu nyamlen di kandis chungba resena tene ngarang tsuge duwa ke tene dirab dinangla duwari moche shacha shireis. Kong sanje yoba megi nyamlen nangdi tene sanje yoba mengo sumdu signe tene tukla chilabdu silebne digi tene kongi sungsha chudi shacha shiri kongter dewa chenla kiya ki druptab sariterita. Pechana deshin nangte druptab nyungu deshin shingdupi shingdaas. Da deshin shingla kiya ki shingda sede kholo dabra. Mota kholo khona ngazo ngachila lebgiraba. Pedi nang shingda dewa chenla kiya ki pechade mela deshin shingdup shingde kholo.
So here the key is to make it efficient. So there are 4 causes that make it efficient, and we can gather all the causes into one single practice, which is what we do here. We have a practice, sort of ready-made set of or organized system to fill these conditions, these causes that make it possible for us to get our wish fulfilled. So that's this text. Everything is in there. The 4 causes are in there. And I read the title and then I'll explain the short sadhana of the Sugata Amitabha, called the wheel of the practice chariot of the great bliss, pure land. So this is a text. It's of course, it's a text with words on paper, but actually its origin is not a text, a textual transmission initially. It comes from the mind, the realized mind, the enlightened mind of an accomplished master in Tibet, the great accomplished one, the Mahasiddha or the Siddha Shakyashri, who was a practitioner of the Drupal lineage. And what he realized and what he got is a practice that now is found in the Drupal lineage. So this is a Drupa practice, a Drupa sadhana. And Shakyashri, in his life, got in his enlightened state of living life, got and then met the Buddha, infinite light, had an encounter and a transmission from infinite light. So it was not a text, it was a spiritual, mental, mind transmission. It's mind treasure. It came in his enlightened mind. And then he put it into a text that we are going to use. And so it's called the short sadhana of the Sugata Amitabha. So that's the Buddha. Sugata means gone into bliss. It's an epithet for a Buddha, an enlightened one. It means an enlightened one. Amitabha, infinite life. And then it's called the wheel of the practice chariot. So the term chariot is a little bit archaic because it refers to a Tibetan culture where they had no other vehicles than chariot tracted by horses. But the idea is not at all of something as slow as archaic. You can put a vehicle, any vehicle that's fast and that carries, that can carry you and carry many people. So it's a vehicle of accomplishment of great bliss. That's the idea of the wheel and the chariot, is that it it takes us on the way very fast and very efficiently.
So Teneda, Tinyamindi la Toma, Guru Muche, Soata Vekisi Sondibdi, Da Ngawang Drupaki Tsunangdoa, the Istera Shacha Shiri Mare, Da Chirtangi, Tinyamlindi Toma, Tinu Sama Guru Muchela Sawata me, Guru Muchi Chinab Jugore, Denzang, Tenetsiti Soditi Yamuyore, Istanbul.
So let's go through this text and see how to practice it. So it starts with the page A. When you see page A, B, C, it means it's additions to the original text. So now we are not yet in the main text of this treasure from Shakyashri. This is added by His Holiness the Ngawang Drupa. The page A, the 7-line prayer to Guru Padmasambhava. It comes as a sort of preliminary or introduction because this practice is in continuity with the blessing of Amitabha and Padmasambhava, which belongs to the same family as Amitabha. So to get the blessing from this stream, this specific family of enlightenment, there is to start this general prayer to Padmasambhava. It's not specific to this practice, but it's introduced it in a general way. Therefore, it's put here to enter into the practice. So let's pray Padmasambhava together. So twice in Tibetan and once in English language.
June Jesona Cordo Cando Emambe Coroi Jezo Dandruji Jinji Allah Jere Jezo Guru Bema Sende Uje Yurje Nojang Sama Bema Ege Saraya Dombola Yasen Joge Wendo Nye Bema Jone Jesu Cordo Gando Emambe Coro Jezo Dado Jinje Allah Jere Jesu Guru Embe Maizede
In English, Hong, in the northwest of Udiana, in the heart of a lotus flower, endowed with the most marvelous attainment, you are renowned as the lotus born, surrounded by many hosts of dakinis, following in your footsteps. Oh, following in your footsteps, the last verse is not translated, but it says, because I follow in your footsteps, please grant your blessing.
Da dene nyamlen ngomali pyarta de dongor machigi dene dangbo jibi sondep se dewa chenla dewa chengi nyamlen ki jibi sondep se di ngarang so chiyo khande chene wang lung ti dene machiba chiko warwa tila jiba se garwa dene di jiba degi danda jiba degi sondep di dene manzo ki samlo tang warwa Kandis judo sedi pechanang emaho disumjewe chisowe pames sanjewe pame jola nyingji sezik chenrese chenrese zamling tendo chepsik pe majum gurum bache ta tangbo yongsa di pame chenrese gurum bache cholung tugu sumne ma june sanga dumye dorji tijum dang sedi tene de Doan Bachi Shachi Shiri Horangi, Lamada Bachi, Sapsangdorjini Mukabapas, Pauchimbo Rixar Tomela, Sedi, Doan Bachi Shachi Shiri. Kangdar Amitabha, Doan Bachila, direct Junture. Make it don't want Semeshiri. Korde Kadatin, Kangdar da Shachi Shirine, Amitabha, Shachi Shiri, direct up. Tila Pechana Menayang, Shachi Shiri, Kachu to Samangbochi. Tujiru machi pe machojala, pe machojal tene jawang rupa, tene chabji tusir machi, tene danda jawang rupa chungi pa chene nganzola, jibadi machiba chungzang, tene jibadi manyambari, da digi jibadi sondeheb sega, tela chene.
What comes next is again, as you can see by the numbering, that we are still in addition. We are not yet starting the sadhana. We are calling for the blessings of getting the ability to enter into this sadhana, to be blessing, to be best conditioned for, in the best state for entering the sadhana. And this is another prayer where we call for blessings, where we call enlightened ones to grant the blessings. And after this general prayer to Padmasambhava, now it's a prayer to the lineage of transmission. What we call a lineage is a stream of blessings. So where does this practice come from? And blessing of that, this practice has a blessing, and this blessing has been conveyed, you know, which creates a stream down to us. The blessing of this practice, of this transmission of this practice. So we're going to invoke and call all the different elements that made it possible for this stream of blessing to reach us from the source down to us today in 2022, to get this blessing. So it starts so it's called the gathering of clouds of blessings, because of It's an image for what we're going to do through this prayer. Emaho is a sort of cry of wonder, wonderful, and it starts from Amitabha, the infinite light himself. Amitabha, union of the Buddhas of the three times, this is the original source. And then Amitabha is here considered as Dhammakaya. Dhammakaya is the universal form of enlightenment. And then when it comes as manifest to us as human beings, it goes through Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, different aspects or dimensions of enlightenment. And Nirmanakaya is the realm where we are. So Amitabha is Dhammakaya, Chenrezi is the Sambhogakaya, and then we have Chenrezi who watches over beings with tender compassion, and then Padmasambhava, sole refuge of the teachings and of the beings of this world. Padmasambhava is the Nirmanakaya, our own realm of manifestation. And then in our realm of manifestation, this blessing was passed through Dorje Dujam, and then you have the way it's written, it doesn't make it very clear, but then comes the name when we have the great hero, you see with capital letters, that's refers to master, actually. That actually we're talking about Drubpon Shakyashri, the one who formalized this treasure that came through his enlightened mind. And so we are calling all these masters, all these keys to the stream of blessing to bestow the blessing to us for the realization.
Da khantar dokdo dom jamla tiring nyamlen degi tene jin lama jiv sonde preta di dangbo ti dirala da hagwa dirba jandati.
And of course, then if we have the entire lineage, within we have also so we have also our own guru, and from Shakyashri it was passed to Tipen Pema Chogyal, and then down to our own root guru, the Ngawang. But the idea of calling upon the masters of the lineage is that we are engaging and using a specific practice, and this practice has come to us through a stream which means a transmission channel. So we are calling the transmission channel the blessing of the channel before we get the blessing of the practice itself. When we do the practice, there is sort of introduction of getting the channel to support us.
So
let's do it together with the joined hands.
Di shancheng di manzo pa Ngawang Drubpa gi densa Amitabha ne tsule jare dine sidi yorba ta di nangsing ji ne den thuna ya koreba manzo samma lobjong je di nangsing de ngores.
So we are going to to chant, to use a certain melody or way of chanting it, and we're following the way His Holiness is doing it. In Duk Amitabha in Nepal. It has been recorded, and we are these days, because this is a sort of a new version of the melody, so we are training with this new recording, and so all of us are here learning how to do it, how to chant it.
Sangai doinye doroje de jamanda sabsan doroje nye Tomela Megidonjo Drubpon Sawande Semejide Menyo Jansemejo Renyena Zamo Tarachende Cordeñalo Zoma Chemboye Cada Teje Ribe Anjarazazen Rindo Degal Noije Darajene Samevele Nubarajinje Elo Injike Tola Chikdana Yahundo.
Let's read it in English to get an idea of what we are calling for. Wonderful Amitabha, union of the Buddhas of the three times. Generously, who watches over beings with tender compassion. Padmasambhava, sole refuge of the teaching and the beings of this world. Dorji Jujum, accomplished in the secret Mantrayana, profound secret holder of the Vajra essence, great hero with unobstructed sharp awareness. I pray to you with intense and fervent devotion. May I master the aspirational and practical mind of bodhicitta, based on the four immeasurable, and achieve the two profound stages of yoga, as well as the vast expanse where samsara nirvana are one, great perfection. Having seized the royal seat of Rigpa's primordially pure track shoe cutting through, and having achieved the four visions of spontaneously present Tugal direct crossing, bless me that I realize the immaculate light body.
Deneda Pechanala, Tambo, Tijela, Sunduki Jela, Tene Mixi, Don Mujish Shiri, Lansoan Pidoa, Kangjin to be Wangshu Mila Jes. Tene Tijela, Sosuke Zavalama, Soan Tepido, Ominchi in Jipotames. Tene somebody, Tene Dila Dibuto, we are Chaselwa don Chijin Shebadam, Sidi. Teda Lama Jibadi Salamanzoke, Elandiba, Tene Gushachi, Chasa, Chibapi, so Tene, this is Samachi down, Diren to that day, sick, Shishi Sumdo.
Yes, sir. Now we continue with these prayers. So we had the lineage prayer, which is completed. Now is the prayer to Shakyashri, so the one from whom this prayer, who created this prayer, this practice of Amitabha, of great light. So there's four lines, of four verses for Shakyashri, and then there are four prayers, which are 4 lines prayers, which are quite universal, but the way to address to our root guru and the one who gave us the practice, who transmitted the practice, and we pray to the root guru, 4 lines. And then page E, there is a 7-branch prayer. So 7-branch prayer is a practice of accumulation of merit, which we perform in front of all those enlightened ones we have invoked before, starting from the Buddha and the Dhammakaya dimension, Sambhogakaya, etc. And all of them are in front of us, and we present prostrations, offering, confessions, and so on. What is said in page E in front of them, and for that we hold and we play the bell, and we hold bell and vajra. Let's read all together.
Kanjen be wang chu me la je sang a yin ji zong zeng ngam zong zhou den zhong jir sang be nen zhe xia jia xie ri xia bla sa wan de 我们聚集迎接报道的，这什么上界困境，让心就跟我说等着吧，在为了没想，说完的讲出来话到，人下巴到，你说也让今天说完，也话就是大概就是嘛，他们다 디서 참마 대체 데라바 피버르신다 버라바 단단냠len기
With all that, we have sort of prepared ourselves to engage in the actual practice now after this preparation. So next page is page 1 for the title, 1A for sort of introduction explanations, and then the practice starts, page 2A.
ene dila thongma de dagi shiba nangsing kunju sumna chapsun rogo goyore thebwaji mo semchi ko dini tengo dangbo de tene tsini de kunchu sumge tsasum jasuta nangwa tayi jawa sejila sedi tene chapdo reda de da dirida de signal khande yena yang mena yang samlo ta de dagi labje dire sangje shu keden dene ding chabi sanje dene re gen chu se de re gen se de re dila chapson rogo tenda de korwe chikpale chap de re sam singni de gi de chap roje ta dire ta denda samgor mo chila samlo ta dila de de semna tengo de kunju sum de re kunju sum na chapsum mandro na korwale targe mare ba singni dene daso kachap rowa malekun Tensung Jangchu Bardo Chapsuchi Sidi, Tene Tewachimo Simjega, Chabro Simje de Nyambuto, Sishila, Simje de Hahoso, Tene Simje de la Kunung Momadi, Yangi Pama Simje Tamje, Korwa Dungali Tareagi, Tandala, Niegi, Tene Zobesan, Zobe Jangchu, Sanje Kabon to win, Satir, that was him motivation there.
So page 2A, the first practice there is not, yes, it starts actually there in the italic page 2, there is the last, the last line towards the right, third line starting from the end, you see main body of the practice. So this could be cut here and put this on the next page. Main body of the practice. Recite the following verses with the intention of taking refuge in the Sugata Amitabha, the 3 jewels, and the 3 roots, which are visualized in front of you like a sea of cloud. So this is the taking refuge practice. And it says, she in Amitabha, who truly is the 3 jewels. So this is what we have talked about really at the very beginning today of this session. We were talking about refuge and what makes us practitioners who are on the path of enlightenment. So when we recite these 4 verses, we have to within ourselves take refuge, which means that we have to consider that now I want to get out of samsara, be free from this endless circle of suffering. And the only way, if I don't take refuge, so I have to be into that mood or that movement rather, towards the 3 jewels. So the 3 jewels, and this is the time to bring to mind, not only visualize things fancy and colorful, but bring to mind what enlightenment, Buddha, it is enlightened state, and go for this enlightened state. And the Dharma is the path, and all what we have said, the practices and the teachings, and enter into this path and this training, and then the Sangha and so on. What we have said has to be brought into our mind and practice. This is the practice of refuge. And Actually, it says more than that. There is more than that, but that's the basic refuge. Taking refuge is to have in mind this determination to be free from some suffering and turning our mind and going for this Dhamma, Buddha, and Sangha thing, which is going for enlightenment and putting our mind into the practice of the Dharma. And in the details, it says other things, but that they are not the key. The key is the movement of our mind. And so it says what it says, describing what we visualize and what we have to bring to mind. And then at the end of the first line, it says, I and as many beings as space can hold. That's okay. Well, it just says pervading all space. So there's no possibility of what space can or cannot hold. It's all space, like limitless as space. Sentient beings take refuge. And this is the bodhicitta. We bring into our practice of refuge, we already bring the motivation of bringing all sentient beings, limitless as the sky, as the space, into this path of enlightenment. So it's both a refuge and already it's a bodhicitta development.
Tene ditsikshigi inju chabru tengi yorite daso kachab goa malukun densung changchu bardu chabsu chesidi tekwa chimbu ki chabru tengi yorite inzang sikshidi inju chabru rite tekwa chimbu chabru tekwa chimbu ina tene kachab ki simchin tamchi chabsu rogo esido denzo chabru tekwa chimbu chabru
We could take refuge just for liberating oneself, get out of samsara, go for a state of spiritual realization, which is out of samsara. But here we're not doing that. We include all sentient beings limitless as the space is not question, as I said, of how many it can hold. It's infinite. And so including all, it's a sort of universal refuge, universal motivation for all sentient beings. And that makes us practitioners of Mahayana towards complete enlightenment. So let's do it together, folded hands, at least 2 times in Tibet.
Nawaya daye jerwa se jala nazoye kaja rovaya malebe dezoye jancho barado ja Joy zonge sa samay jazna nawaya taye jerwaya se nazoye kaja rovaya malebe dezoye jancho barado
In English, Sri, in Amitabha, who truly is the 3 jewels, the 3 roots, and the notion of masters surrounded by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, I and as many beings as space can hold, all without exception, take refuge from today until enlightenment.
Tene da disishira mindo ata karma nishu doa de jiwa dina na shana samsung yang kecha dhago de shina.
So, we can go on. We have about 10-20 minutes. So we could go on, but this is already an important topic we covered this morning. And I would like to open the floor and give you the opportunity if you have any question, because this is, I I add, if I may, this is really a precious opportunity to ask questions about your practice or your understanding, so about what has been said, or anything related to your practice or your understanding of the Dharma. So would you like to take the floor and ask questions? If so, please turn on your camera, and you can just turn on your microphone and talk. I think we are not that many, it should not be too chaotic. Yes, Michael? Michael?
Oui. Oh yes, sorry. I have a question about the beginning of the text, where you said the prayer to Guru Rinpoche was added because he was part of the same Buddha family as Amitabha. So my question is, what makes them belong to the same family? Is it like a bond between teacher or student, or is it they are like different aspects of enlightenment? Or I just like to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. Et bonjour. Pas de souci. Drupala, dampo du tab di ngan la, gorim buche la selep dun chikto, tene yang la gul la selep la yang gorim buche du, tene di rik nganane, ko nawataye dampa masambava rik chikbajes, son diri rik gi, rik chik, gikesha kandere, di lama loma gikesha re, yana koranzo mixelgi jawayore, rik rire la, kandes rik seken gansu indike family se, di la jawa kandere rik chik na la sa.
Da, jiwa kale kakuri da chik jiwa di. Chirdang samno tana, rik sadi pa iwa chena, tene shaar lo nu sanje re la rik re alwa. Rik su duna, rik chikla dugi doa. Chikla dugi arda, Amitabha la duna, pena dorji chang sekido, rik tam chi tabu dorji chang. Tene danda Amitabha, rik tam chi tabu, Amitabha rik, tene pema rik sekido, rik di, 당보 니코는 자 당보 셈지 감는 지게지라 되는 릭지지 되네다 그름부치디 아미타바게 릭저바 답변을 한데서는 그름부치 가만히 통화를세디 면도뼈만한 통화 면도뼈만한 통디 간데체르세디 아미타바 호랑기 되네 투지면람 고송토비 진람돼서 Vezir Amitabha Levyandi, Teneda Amitabha Giredwa. Ta Gurumuchiga Aba Amasina Amitabha, Uchen Mendope Malata, and Mendope Manane, Tene Gurumuchi Tenes Tungyorova. Kandar Tene Indi, Tene Benadilla, Tisum Jevichisoyaba Mes, Chugu Redwa. Chugu Riktam Dharmakaya. Then Dharmakaya Kagasona. Tene rola nyingji go san rik chene se. Tene yang zamling tendo urumbache se de, tene chogu longu tuku, tene chik. Ta rik se de family rang maimba, unji tuji malam ki, chen rik tene chi mendo ta nge len yakuji te tuke na o maso. Chirala.
Alors, en fait, c'est une question qui, pour moi, est un petit peu difficile parce qu'on est en train de parler, quand on parle des 5 familles, en fait, des différentes familles. Sorry, I'm speaking French. Oh, my apologies, because Michael is French as well. So Drubpon said it's a little bit of a difficult question for me because when we're talking about these Buddhist families, we are talking about the enlightenment and so what, how we can classify enlightenment is not easy. But it is said there are 5 families, and here the word families, of course, is not a family like in the sense of human, like living in a house, the father, mother. It's more like a classification, as for instance in biology we classify and we say classes and families and species and so on. So this is one family. And we could talk about 5 families, and maybe we could say, I'm adding that there are different phases of enlightenment, facets of enlightenment. And Drubpon said, for instance, these 5 are classified and distinguished according to different directions. The east, the west, and the north, and the south. And so this is the way. So there is one family, which means one class, one species of enlightenment in one direction. But as practitioners, this is not very important because they all come to one, which is enlightenment. So here in this practice, the Buddha is Amitabha. There's one family, it's Buddha Amitabha. And sometimes we say one Buddha, and it's Vajradhara. So whatever, when we are practicing, we are within a set, and there is one Buddha. So we are within one family. Here we are in the Lotus family, because Amitabha is, when we speak about 5 families, then he's in the West, and that's the Lotus family. But for us in this practice, there is one Buddha, and this is the family of Amitabha. And the specificities of this family, this I add phase of enlightenment, is something I'm not sure I can answer, but we can say that sometimes Padmasambhava is, when there is an introduction to Padmasambhava as a historical figure, someone who existed, he was a man on earth, then the story goes that he was born through the blessing of Amitabha. It's Amitabha's project. Amitabha radiated light, and this light came down on earth, and it went to a place called Odiyana, which is in northern Pakistan or near Afghanistan. And there on a lotus, all of a sudden, someone amazing, Padmasambhava means the lotus born, was born. So he is the manifestation of the aspiration, blessing, and compassion of Amitabha. So there is really affiliation in this case. So in this case, we can say, who are the parents of Padmasambhava? That's the Buddha Amitabha. He's the father and he's the mother. In this case, it's very clear like that. But if you look at the text, we have page B when we are praying to this, what I call before the channel, which is the lineage. Amitabha, union of the Buddhas of the 3 times. So he's the union of the Buddhas. He's all the Buddhas into one. So there's no question of 5 families here, but he's the Dhammakaya. And then next is Chenrezig, who watches over beings with tender compassion. That's a level closer to us in terms of our own experience. That's the Sambhogakaya. And then next is Padmasambhava, Nirmanakaya. The Nirmanakaya means manifest in this world. That's why it's written, sole refuge of the teaching of the being of this world. So that's the manifestation. The manifestation in this world of Chenrezig, Sambhogakaya, and Amitabha, Dhammakaya. So I'm not sure I could answer very well, but I hope I tried my best. Does it answer the question?
Then Chenrezig ugi kanla Amitabha chungchung jidwa di Chenrezig korangi tsawala marwa riktarwa. Tilabdi riki dapu di rangi tsawala ma tsigor dorji chang tsawala marwa den tsina dagi rikda lama dorji chang shaja shiri Ngawang Drubpon dangaran tsawala ma Ngawang Drubpon riktar riki dapu di rikda tsina diyor.
when we practice, we have to consider our root guru as the union of all the Buddhas, and we call that the holder of the Vajra, Vajradhara. He is the union of all the Buddhas. So here, who is Vajradhara? That's Amitabha. He is the Vajradhara, if we may say, in this family. Because he's the source of enlightenment and all this stream of enlightened manifestations. And Chenrezig here mentioned as the Sambhogakaya, when you look at some aspects of Chenrezig, some forms of Chenrezig, Chenrezig has on the top of his head, there is Amitabha. Why is Amitabha on his head? Because Amitabha is his Vajradhara, his source of enlightenment. His root guru is Amitabha. So it's one family in that sense. The enlightenment of Amitabha provides Chenrezig and provides Padmasambhava.
Okay, clear?
Is it clear? Do you have any other questions? Or we can take several questions. And please don't be shy. It's always helpful for everyone, even though we may think we have a silly question and we don't want others to hear it. Just open your microphone. You can do that.
Minduna tene da takbar chicharan soke sem nangla dewa chena kia la jushi di changu gudwa sambadi majeba che gudus.
So one thing is that to wrap this first session and take with you is that to be reborn in Dewachen, one needs 4 causes. And we have to ensure that they are present because they are the conditions of a rebirth in Dewachen. So our awareness should be, if we want to be reborn, if we're interested into that practice, which you must be if you're here, always make sure you gather the conditions in your own mind stream. So ask yourself, are these 4 causes present in my mind right now? Because this is what will make it efficient.
Tene chu dangbo de ten sokshin salda ba sedirba. Tene dewa chingi shingam de tanga dendela da. Tene semgi tengu da nuki chokla. Te seya kangla tila shingam de yore. Tegi temba Buddha Amitabha shuki yore. Semne di chokla tandene dewa chingi shingam la ke gudu samne tengu yore. Chik tere. Nidi tene melam druyala sonam ki tsok mamu samu duwa. Sonam ki tsok la di tene tikpa pangaya gewa druga dina dugu yorwa. Tiso rangi mitsinang na kaze tikpa le diso la tyo samjene. Ti tikpa re, di gewa re samne. Tila nyamlin chiya dirwa nipa de. Tene sumba di tene dewa chena kaya mulam jedu mangbu yorwa. Ema ho masar sangje na wata yedam. Dragochi yamene diba dagi lapsonga dewa chingi shingamna. Sangje yoba menga mulam tabe shingcho tere. Tene nimarela sar drog sam chik dentu kogore. Tene shiba di drog jangju simji sisen sedi. Tene jamningji jangju simgi di tabar kogo yorwa. Di shi changna tene dewa chela kiyemaki tetsumi yomare sungu yora. Diri ta denda nguma di domjamna diri ta dewa chela kiyaki ta diri hagona riksares.
So to remind ourselves of what these 4 conditions are. First one, which we said is trust, and this trust comes from having in mind the existence of this Pure Land. So in the Western direction, we should always have in mind that wherever we are towards the West, there is this Pure Land, and keep this Pure Land in mind. It's a field, and we can visualize it. So we may just always visualize wherever we are there in the Western direction, there is this wonderful pure land of infinite light, and visualize it, or what the descriptions we have provided and where you can find in other texts as well, and keep it in mind. We need to keep in mind this pure land wherever we are. So it's towards the West, and also a little bit slightly above. It's not just at even level with us, it's above us towards the West. And we can during the day bow down, pray, think, and orient, it's sort of direct our mind towards this pure land. That's the first condition, the first cause for the efficiency of our aspiration. The second is that we need to have this energy of positivity, the merits, which means that we must refrain from harming negative deeds of body, speech, and mind as much as we can, and the opposite, do as good as we can, good deeds of body, speech, and mind as much as we can, so that we have this force, which is also a cause or a propulsing on that aspiration, making it efficient. And the third one is to cultivate the aspiration, and the most efficient is to recite a prayer. So pray regularly, as often as you can, an aspiration prayer. May I be reborn in Dewa Chen. There is this pure land, pure field with Buddha infinite light, and it's all blissful. And may I be reborn there. May I be reborn there, as many times as possible. And the fourth one was bodhicitta. So we must generate and develop our body of mind of enlightenment, which means loving kindness and compassion towards all sentient beings and towards any sentient beings. Others always have this loving, kind, compassionate thought. And if we have these 4 conditions, the presence of the Pure Land in our mind, the good deeds, there's the merits, and no negativity, activities of body, speech, and mind, and we pray and pray to be reborn in Dewa Chen, and we aspire to liberate all beings, and we're cultivating kindness, loving kindness and compassion. Then there is no doubt. It's not like, perhaps with that I managed to be reborn in Dewa Chen. No, it's not. You will manage, perhaps. You will. You have all the conditions, and it's very efficient, and you'll be reborn in Dewa Chen after you die, after we die.
So that this is Sangdo,
That's in Dula.
So Tene Danganzo this is Sangdo, Chizini Rasado, Tene da de la Samsha Gudu, Ningo Shila Rendo, Tene Samala, Shilangibu Nans, enjoy meal, yes.
So the Koran Suchi Sangadori, Koran Sut and Lamsang Koran Such, Kalasagim, Tenda Koran to England like a Chutsugi Kibari, Chutsuki Kiba Koran Sutenda.
This did. Yechone Bonapiti Labora. Tene Akela Tene Chuzu Sumbala, Loyongudo.
Okay, so French time, because we are in France. So from France, it's lunch time. So Drubpon is wishing you a happy lunch break. even though it's a bit early. I told him it's a bit early for them, but nevertheless. So enjoy your meal, and we'll meet again. So in France it will be 3 o'clock, and for you in the UK it will be 2 o'clock. So enjoy your meal and see you then.
Thank you. See you 3 o'clock.
2 o'clock English time.
English time 2 o'clock. French time 3 o'clock. Thank you.